Hello and welcome. This is going to be a divine partnership coaching video in the parenting series. I wanted to share a little experience and then talk about being accountable as parents and being a good example of accountability, especially when we find ourselves confronted with our kids still exhibiting, like, say, old behaviors that make things frustrating for us, especially because, like, 9 out of 10 times it is either something that we did directly that trained our children into that behavior, even if it was simply being a bad example, or our co-parent did, and if we didn't work that out with them, then we are just as much accountable for that. And the example very simply, so my youngest, who is 9, we just started the online distance learning for his school district, and he had some homework that he needed to do. Now, he told me that he already did it, and he's my youngest, so I'm not new to these tricks on it. And I told him, okay, well, I want you to go get it and bring it with us when we go to the park, which his face immediately dropped, and he started to get upset because he had not actually done it and had lied about it. And I very gently just asked him why he lied about it. And he started to get upset and get a little bratty about it. And I was just assertive and said, hey, that attitude is not welcome. You need to be accountable to the consequences of this because you chose to lie about it, which is not my fault. Your emotions are valid and understandable, but the disrespectful behavior is not acceptable. And he still got upset. Now, in the past, and unfortunately a lot with his older brother, I would have taken that as defiance. That's a lot of how I was raised. You don't talk back. You don't have a smart mouth. Things like that. You listen and you take it effectively. And unfortunately, I was a very bad example of self-discipline and emotional security, especially when being lied to or being frustrated. And I showed that in the way that I handled things with them and the way that I handled things even with their dad or with other adults when it was a distressing situation. And a part of that isn't just how I was raised. I also have ADHD myself, and that comes with some emotional regulation dysfunctions. That doesn't mean that we can't find compensatory methods to be able to work around that. Sometimes it just takes a little longer. But I would not have owned my own behavior in the past. And which actually provides two great examples, because when I started to realize that, and I went in and got some counseling for myself and things like this, which was years ago, I started addressing that with my oldest son, who, I would notice that he would behave anxious in situations where he would have done something inappropriate, like lying, and I had to own, well, I didn't have to, I chose to own with him that part of his anxiety was because I was too authoritarian with him. I thought I was being authoritative rather than authoritarian, like just being assertive and direct. And the truth is, I was yelling. Even if I wasn't yelling, like raising my voice and even lowering the register and being very, I would be very upset if he would yell, and it didn't register in my mind, this is a child who has not had a good experience, and he's been seeing me be this way with him, and he saw me and his dad fight a fair amount and be that way with each other as we, repeated our own trauma cycles from growing up. And I wouldn't have owned that. And so especially the last couple of years, but the last, I want to say 5 years, I really started to own with him, like, what? Let's take time to acknowledge in this moment that part of your anxiety is because I used to yell at you a lot, and I wasn't very forgiving. I didn't give a lot of grace, and I really, with him, unfortunately, being the experimental model, because he's my oldest, he would have to go through things like, before we had a point system where they can, anytime they do a chore, do something that is not like we have regular things that are just things that they need to do for good health that they don't get points for, like brush your teeth every night. But or keep their room clean. But they're actually, if they take out the garbage, if they help with the yard chores, things like that, they get points on it, and they can earn good things from that. And when they are behaving inappropriately, they lose points, and when they lose points, they lose all tech time until they have earned the points back, which is a really great system, because then it is up to them to decide how long or how short that time span goes. If they don't want to earn the points back, they simply don't get tech time. They're still welcome to play outside. They're not like, I don't feel like I any longer need to be like on top of them, like, you got to do this right now and stuff. I just let them do it themselves. And they both had a little bit of resistance in the beginning, but when they realized that it was up to them, they both started going, oh, okay, so I've lost some points, that's all right, I can hammer them out. I made a list for them that we created together of what equals what amount of points, and they know that they can go and hammer stuff out and be done with it and have their tech time back. It's really easy, and it's been very good for helping all of us have more emotional stability. But unfortunately, with my oldest, I didn't know that. I didn't have that experience. I didn't have that kind of teamwork with his dad at the time, and it could be something as simple as like, you're losing all tech and all playtime, and we're not going to go do this fun stuff for a day. Or if he kept, if he reacted badly to that, as is understandable now. I didn't understand that then or have the empathy for it, but now seeing that, it was an appropriate reaction from him to be that upset. That would have then resulted in me getting even more assertive and aggressive about it, and adding on another day. And now I can go back with him and really say, I'm sorry. I am 100% responsible for the misbehavior, because I wasn't being a good example of how to do the right thing. And then I would get mad when you would follow my example or your dad's example, and then I didn't understand or have the experience to be able to offer you a system of discipline that helped you feel good about being capable of doing the right thing, and feeling like I wasn't rejecting you, and was helping you to learn to become a well-rounded, emotionally secure person. Granted, I use different words in that. I'm trying to be a little more pithy in the video. And that's helped a lot for him to feel like he's not 100% responsible for feeling anxious in certain situations. And actually, it's really lowered his anxiety quite a bit. And with my youngest also, my oldest is a Pisces Aquarius cusp baby, so he's got a little bit more of the air sign logicalness to things, and although he does get emotional, he's not typically overly emotional. Also, his Mars sign is Capricorn, so he has a lot more groundedness in there. My youngest, however, is a Leo with strong Scorpio placements and Cancer placements. He's very emotional. Now, I do have some water placements, but I am mostly earth and air placements, so I and my oldest son typically are better able to keep that emotional reactivity down a little bit. My youngest, however, has a hard time with that. Even if I don't raise my voice at all, and I simply just say that behavior is not appropriate, that can cause waterworks to come out, which for a long time was very frustrating for me, because I didn't know how to handle that. I was like, why is this causing this reaction? I don't get it. And then I started to... Sorry about that. That was actually him coming out to check on things, because we're getting ready to go to the park. In any case, so with my youngest, he had the benefit of a much calmer me, but I still had a hard time not wanting to just, like, for me, confrontation is just, you just deal with it, right? Head on. That behavior is inappropriate. But for him, that felt like rejection. That felt like me yelling. And when he was much younger, I did yell a fair amount still. I was still growing out of that and learning mostly on my own how to get out of that. And so for him, even now, just to have me say, hey, I'm disappointed in this behavior. that is not acceptable, can still cause that reaction. And for him, sometimes it's overwhelming even because he doesn't fully understand why he's acting in that way. And what's great is, especially since I've really started to work on my healing, and I've even made some friends that are on very similar journeys who've had similar experiences with their kids, that I can stop in that moment and I can own that it wasn't inappropriate of me to be assertive, because I didn't yell, I didn't raise my voice. I simply said, no, this is not appropriate. But I can also look at him and say, how does that feel in that moment? And he could say, and he did tell me, he said, it felt like you yelled at me. And I could say, well, honey, I did not actually yell at you, but it's understandable that you feel like I yelled at you because I used to yell at you a lot. And sometimes now when you are in trouble, I think that you worry that I'm going to do that again. Is that right? And he said, yeah. And we can talk about it a little bit more, and it also helps him learn, which is really good as a lion cub, with Scorpio placements, to learn that sort of emotional maturity. But we can talk through that, and it's, most of us never got that from our parents or any parental figures, for them to sit down and not, like some people, some parents will go, well, you know what, it's all my fault that you're like this, or it's all your father or mother's fault that you're like this, and you're just like them, or something like that. They'll kind of own it, but put it off and make you feel bad about it. And, thank goodness, I don't like the way the sun's hitting my face on there. But, I mean, how many of us had the experience of our parents very honestly and very sincerely just saying, you know what, I take accountability for your anxiety in this moment, or I take accountability for the way that you reacted towards me, because I have not been a good or I was not a good example for you in the past, or I yelled at you a lot in the past, or I had a hard time regulating my own emotions and I put it on you, and I'm sorry for that. And as a part of a real apology, I've already been working on that. Like in this moment, I did not yell. I was still assertive, but I am going to continue to be here for you and not reject you and not judge you, and encourage the right thing and hold healthy boundaries in the right way. And we're going to work through this together. And I promise you, it's going to continue to get better. And while I promise that I can guarantee I'm not always going to be perfect myself, I will own it. I will come to you and I will make it better. And when I know that that will be a good example, and that you will know how to do the same thing with me. And I can't tell you, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. My youngest, unfortunately, when he was little too, both as a product of bad examples around him, myself included, and just being a little Leo baby. I mean, he used to have such a temper that he would take his like little twin mattress and shove it out in the hallway and put all of his toys out there and unplug his Xbox and everything, and just kind of punish himself in that. And even that I would get reactive at. It just seemed like a really an overreaction, but it's not helpful for me to overreact to his overreaction. It actually turned out better to just let him do it, and then have him be accountable to put it back without yelling at him, without making him do it, just letting him do it in his own time. And now, like, he hasn't had that challenge in years, to be honest. And even in these moments, whereas, he might go and take 5 minutes to have some tears, and he doesn't want to be hugged, and he doesn't want to do all that stuff, at very least, that in the past could have taken 20 minutes, and now it's like 5 minutes. It's simple, and he'll come back out, and he'll tell me how he feels, and I make it, in fact, one of my, his dad's things that he really appreciates about me is, despite my flaws, I have always made a point of being the kind of mom that my kids can come and say, I'm mad at you, or I hate you, or whatever it is, and I don't laugh at them, I don't yell at them. I actually appreciate that they feel like they can tell me that, and they know that I still love them, I'm not going to reject them, and that I understand that it's in the moment. It's in the moment. We all have feelings like that. We all get frustrated. We all take things out of context sometimes. I've even saved a couple of notes. My youngest one time sent me a text. It was a picture drawing in just red. It was just, like it's like a stick, not a stick figure, like a smiley face, but it was an angry face because he didn't know how to spell yet, and he just sent me, and I kept that. I love it. I'm not in love with the fact that he was upset and that a lot of that was my doing, but I loved that he felt like he could send that to me. He could express his emotion in that way. And I have a couple of written notes that he sent to me, even that was, I hate that you did this, or I hate you for not letting me do this thing when I was throwing a fit, you know, and I like that. I like that they feel like they can express that to me. I was not able to have that experience growing up, and neither was their dad, and that was a part of the impetus for wanting to be the kind of mom that my kids felt like they could be that way with me. But a lot of that includes learning to own my own BS in that, learning to own my own, learning to look at where have I been a bad example that could have caused them to react in this way, and how can I be a better example now? How can I hold space for them in this moment to where we can de-escalate the old momentum and start to create new experiences and new momentum where they feel safe and held and are also not being coddled and allowed to get away with it, because healthy boundaries are important in there. My own experience, and I see a lot of other parents do it, to where it's either they're very reactive and it's all on the kids and they're doing that, or they'll go the other way and kind of act like a big victim about it, or they'll just say, fine, do whatever you want, you're not going to listen to me anyways, or I'm just going to feel like a big doo-doo head if I discipline you, blah 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 blah. No, you need to have healthy boundaries. You still have to do that icky part of parenting where it's like, I know that this makes you uncomfortable and emotional, but you're still going to do it. You're still going to do your homework. You're still going to clean your room. However, I have changed, even in that, I've evolved some of that. In the past, I like I did with my oldest son, what was done with me, which is, well, you didn't do your homework and you lied about it, so now you're going to sit here until you finish it, which is hard, especially for a kid with ADHD and or on the autism spectrum, because just being in trouble in that level can affect your neurology and make it hard for you to concentrate and do your work. I mean, I had hours and hours of time that I had to sit at tables trying to force myself to do work, and I couldn't figure out why I could not do it, and I'm constantly getting in trouble. And unfortunately, I did some of that with my oldest son when he was younger, and but it's through, my drive to learn to be a healthier and healthier parent and person in general, that, even my youngest son, I said, look, I'm not going to make you sit at the table until you finish it. I want you to put in an honest 20 minutes, and whatever is not done after that point, we will look at it. If it's doable right now, I will help you do it, and not help him in the way a lot of people do it for him, but help lead him to do it and help make it fun. That's a very important thing, especially any kids that like are dealing or coping with ADHD or autism or ODD, or have come, or if you've been a parent who's been a bad example or a yeller or things like that, learning to make the boring stuff fun can really go a long way, and it's a lot more important than just doing it for them. But either way, I mean, these videos are still a work in progress, so please let me know if you'd like them to be more bullet pointed. But I hope that this kind of shared a little bit and helps some of you out there in learning to really take, the profoundness of being accountable. For me, it's very much a part of empathetic parenting, which is looking at, how did I get traumatized as a kid? And how likely is it that my parents did that stuff to me because it was done to them? Building that empathy, and then looking at, okay, I didn't like being treated this way as a kid, and it didn't help, and it actually, look at the proof in the pudding, it made me treat my kids in the same way that I got treated, and for a long time I didn't even know that I was doing that. I thought that that's how you got things done, and many times I thought I was doing it to the opposite, when really I wasn't. Like, it may have been, nah, I just wasn't. There's no need for equivocation. I was doing the same thing. And to be able to stop and really look at that and go, okay, I did not like this. How can I be different? How can I do different? How can I be a different example? And I think one of my favorite parts about it isn't even necessarily the profound change in their behavior and their happiness and their emotional healing, but in my own. That helps with my own inner child. That helps me reparent and heal myself, which automatically helps me become a calmer and more mature parent and a better example in general. And I really, really like feeling like that. I like feeling like the type of mom that doesn't need to yell, and that I know that I can be just as effective in holding space and holding comfortable boundaries and not taking it way out of context. And also, I don't have to go back and apologize for a whole bunch more of my behavior as they grow up. Instead, we have so many more fun experiences. And even like my oldest he used to be horrible at homework and catching up, and that was largely my fault. And now, like I found today, he took his recess time and caught up on his history work. He didn't have to. I didn't suggest it. His teachers didn't suggest it. He just wanted to get it done and out of the way. And I was like, heck yeah. Yeah, you. Like, yeah, that's my kiddo, right? And my youngest, even though he was upset and he didn't like feeling in trouble for lying, I didn't even have to suggest he do anything about it. He simply decided, I'm going to go in and do it right now and just get it done. And I said, you know what? I love that you're taking responsibility for that. That is a perfect response for that. And if you still feel emotional or stuck, or if there's any part of it that, you want help with, come out and tell me. Come out and, let me help. I want to help. That's what I'm here for. And that's exactly what happened. And it's a great experience to see him take accountability too. And that makes my job easier on top of that. And I get all sorts of compliments these days from lots of people about how polite they are, how kind they are, how genuine they are, how authentic they are, and how I seem to be. It's funny, in some ways I kind of get the impression that people think that they're just magically like that, and that I'm very lackadaisical, like I don't do anything to get for them to be that way. And the funny thing is, I don't have to do a whole lot. I just heal myself, and as I do that, it heals them. And I take a lot of that even from I can't remember the name of the show, but it was where they had the Octomom that had the fertility, and they had the 8 babies at once. They talked to the dad. I think this was after they got divorced, or shortly before, and they asked the dad, like, how do you stay sane with that many kids? Like, I think they even had 2 other kids aside from the 8. I'm going to call them twins because I don't remember. It was like, not quintuplets, sextuplets is 7. I'm not good once you get past 7. But he had said, it's very simple. You have very few rules, because the more rules you have, the more times they're going to break them, and that's going to make you more frustrated. And that is so true, and it should be applied whether you have 1 kid or 17. The fewer rules you can have, the better, and the more likely they are to self-regulate. That doesn't mean no rules. It doesn't mean you let them be in charge, because that actually makes kids feel very unsafe if you are not firmly and securely in charge without being a jerk. But don't have so many rules. And if you've not had enough rules in the past, be gentle about starting the rules. Like, be accountable for where you started and where you're going, and don't try to rush them to be where you now want to be just because you've suddenly had the epiphany of it. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and end this video here before I run out of storage space. So your feedback is always welcome in the comments below, and I so much appreciate your likes, shares, and subscribes, and any questions you might have, so I can keep adding to this series, and hopefully we can all change the world one video at a time, right? Alright, I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.